Hello everybody, this is your English teacher speaking, and this is the third part to my lesson on William Shakespeare. We have seen Shakespeare's life, we have seen also Shakespeare as a playwright, and now this is my lesson on Shakespeare as a poet, because he was also a poet. Don't you remember, he was called the Bard, so he is still considered the best, one of the best poets ever lived in our history. So let's have a look at him as a poet. Okay, so Shakespeare the poet. He wrote 154 sonnets. Now I have used this double question mark because we have lots of doubts about the fact if he really was the author of these 154 sonnets. You know, we have doubts about his existence. But let's say that we understand and we believe that Shakespeare was the real poet of these 154 sonnets. Anyway, they were published in 1609, but were probably written before that date, in the 1590s. Now, we have lots of doubts about these sonnets, and these doubts are the following. We don't know if their authors was really William Shakespeare. We don't know if Shakespeare gave his own permission to publish them. We don't know if the sequence that we have of these sonnets is really the one that Shakespeare had conceived and wanted, if there is any exact sequence of these sonnets. We are not sure about the date of composition. It's quite a doubt. And we don't know about their essence, the real meaning, I mean the goal with which these sonnets were written. Are they autobiographical, or are they just an incredible exercise of style of a superior poetic mind? Then, these sonnets have two addresses, so the two people to which they were directed and dedicated. Let's have a look. The first addressee is maybe this person that you can see here, a young man. And it's a mysterious man. We are not sure about who this person really was. So you see lots and lots of doubts about that. But we know that the former section of these sonnets, so from sonnet number 1 to sonnet 126, this sequence, this first section, is dedicated to a fair youth. This is really the expression that is used. So, a young man, probably Shakespeare's patron, maybe Henry Wriothesley, the Earl of Southampton, and we don't know who really this man was because we just know his initials. We have an H and a W that the author himself uses, but you know, these initials can hide different people because lots of people at that time, important people, had the same initials. We suppose it was the Earl of Southampton who was Shakespeare's patron, so maybe this first section of sonnets were dedicated to him. The second section of sonnets are dedicated to a dark lady. Now, from sonnets 127 to sonnets 154, we have this new addressee, a dark lady. Maybe this Mary Fitton, who was one of the maids of honor of Queen Elizabeth I. But we have some doubts about that. And why dark lady? Maybe because, as in this case, this lady had dark hair and dark eyes, but it could be also referred to a woman who had a dark skin. So you see, mystery over mystery. Now, let's move on and see the main themes that are treated in the sonnets. You see, there is a long series of sonnets, 154, so you can imagine that different themes were dealt with, were treated, were developed in these sonnets. Here you can see the cover of the first edition of the sonnets, and maybe you can see the date here, 1609. So this is the first publication of Shakespeare's sonnets, and you remember, we don't know if this publication was made with the permission of Shakespeare. So let's have a look at the main themes. You remember, Shakespeare is famous because he uses and he treats, develops universal themes that are always valid at any time and in any space. So one of the themes is increase and encouragement to get married. So remember, the first sonnets are dedicated to a young man. So in these sonnets, sometimes he invites the man, this young man, to get married, to have children, in order, in a way, to be eternal, okay, to give his name to new generations to come. Another theme is the destructive power of time. Time is the old enemy to man, and the necessity to make the most of it, to use time wisely. Also, the theme that is also here in the sonnets is the eternalizing power of poetry and of art in general. We are not eternal, we know, we are bound to decay, unless you are you follow a religion. Maybe you believe that there is an afterlife, but generally speaking, our mortal life is mortal, so it's coming to an end. And Shakespeare says that art and poetry can give eternity to man. Think, for example, of the most important poems or the most important portraits or paintings. They have given eternity to the subject of the poem or the subject of the painting, but also to the author. Think of all the great painters, Italian painters, for example, Leonardo da Vinci, Raffaello, Michelangelo, or the important poets, Shakespeare himself. He has become eternal thanks to art. Or also Foscolo, Leopardi, but also Émile Zola, and all the other poets and novelists of all the literature all around the world. They have become eternal, and they have given eternity to their works. Another theme, love and its loss. We all fall in love, and maybe we also experience the loss of love, and this is quite disturbing, and of course it's a universal theme. Friendship, and also the loss of friendship, loss of a friend, or maybe a friend who betrays you, and of course forgiveness, the power to forgive the people whom we love. Let's have a look at the structure of the Shakespearean sonnet. I suppose you already know the Petrarchan sonnet, the Italian sonnet. Let's have a look at the differences or the points that they have in common. So this is the structure of the Shakespearean sonnet. First of all, we have, as in the Italian sonnet, 14 lines, and they are divided into 4 sections, you see. In the Italian sonnet, you would have an octave and a sestet. In the English sonnet, you have 3 stanzas, each of 4 lines, and then the last stanza, which is composed of just 2 lines. Let's have a look. Now, the first section, you have 4 lines, and look at the rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B. And this is called the first quatrain, the group of 4 lines. Then you have line 5, 6, 7, and 8 rhyming C, D, C, D, and this is of course the second quatrain. And then you go to the next quatrain, line 9, 10, 11, and 12. Of course, this is the third quatrain. While line rhyming E, F, E, F, while the last 2 lines, line 13 and line 14, they rhyme with one another, so it's G, G, and this is called a couplet, okay? So quatrain, quatrain because it's 4 lines, 4 lines, 4 lines, and then 2 lines, couplet. It looks like the word couple, couplet. Let's have a look at how the structure and the poem develops. So in the first quatrain, the first 4 lines, the poet offers us a reflection or a series of reflections on a chosen issue, a problem, a situation. So something that he cares about, that he wants to speak about. In the second quatrain, these reflections are reinforced. The poet uses other words or other adjectives to give strength to his reflections. In the third quatrain, I have divided the third quatrain into 2 parts, line 9 and 10. 9. Now, in these 2 lines, or maybe one of these, or line 9 or line 10, we have maybe one of the most important points of the whole poem. It's called the turning point. It is when the poem changes its tone, and something changes in the style, in the tone, and also in the content. And sometimes we perceive this change thanks to the use of some particular words. For example, but, yet, still. Okay, so you can recognize the turning point often thanks to the presence of one of these words. Line 11 and 12, so the following lines, are the lines in which the tone still changes because it's preparing us to the climax. The climax is the most important moment in the poem, which is usually given in the couplet. What happens in the couplet? I have my own personal definition of what happens in a couplet. And in a couplet we have, I call them the fireworks. So really, in these 2 lines, in just 2 lines, the poet gives the solution to the problem or an unexpected conclusion, something that you don't expect. So it's really here that the poet, and Shakespeare in this case, shows all of his ability in managing the language and in giving us the solution to the problem, okay? So his personal view. And sometimes these couplets are really astonishing. I'm giving you an example of a sonnet, and I'm giving you, of course, the original version and then a translation into Italian. I found this translation online, but then I have corrected some points which I didn't like. Now, one thing that you maybe have understood is that we call the sonnet by their numbers, and the number is given by the sequence in which we found them in the collection of sonnets. For example, this is sonnet number 29, but sometimes we can also give a title to this sonnet, and the title is given by the first line of each sonnet. For example, sonnet 29 is also famous as One in Disgrace with Fortune and Man's Eyes, okay? So, I am inviting you to find the turning point in this sonnet. I haven't put the numbers of lines, but if you can count them, and I'm sure you can, you will easily find line 9 and line 10. And as you can see, you will observe that there is that special keyword that introduces the turning point. Yes, you're right. Here it is, yet, okay? So, I would like you to read this poem on your own. Maybe you can just stop the video and read it so you can taste the quality of language. I know it's not very easy because it's Shakespeare in English, but I'm inviting you to, and I'm challenging you to try and read that in a low voice at the beginning and then in a loud voice. Have a look at the translation. The theme is a very nice one. So it's a sonnet dedicated to the young man, to her friend. And okay, I'm not telling you the ending, just enjoy. And I hope you will like it as much as I have liked it. So thank you for now, and see you for the next lesson. Bye bye.